Mr. Stanton.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. There is deep concern that the Attorney General is using the Department of Justice to punish the President's personal and political adversaries. Such actions are a blatant abuse of our constitutional system. Perhaps even more troubling is that in doing so, the Department of Justice's resources are not being used to protect the American people. Our witnesses have provided evidence here today that the Attorney General is pursuing meritless investigations simply to appease the President. Mr. Elias, in your testimony, you mentioned the Department of Justice's investigation into 4 automakers in California who were trying to implement stricter air quality emission standards than those that the Environmental Protection Agency was going to adopt. In other words, they wanted to help clean our air. Is it correct to state that the Department of Justice used immense resources, including dozens of attorneys and staff, to pursue these investigations, even when career staff told leadership that there was no need to further pursue these investigations?
So the DOJ did use dozens of attorneys for the cannabis investigations that are also featured in my complaint. The emissions investigation was a smaller staff. But yes, public resources were used in pursuit of that investigation.
Does that seem like an appropriate allocation of resources to you, to commandeer immense department resources for investigations that career officials said were no longer necessary?
That appeared to be a gross misuse of resources between these various investigations, and that's why I made that allegation to the Inspector General and asked him to investigate gross misuse of resources.
Would it be fair to say that these investigations detracted from the legitimate work these attorneys could and should have been doing?
If these attorneys are working on that, that does take them away from anything else they could be doing that would potentially further the mission of the Antitrust Division.
Using department resources to appease others' activity fails to protect American consumers. In fact, such actions actively harm Americans by weakening the department's ability to prosecute legitimate antitrust claims. The American people would much rather see the Department of Justice investigate issues of grave concern to us all. For example, companies seeking to price gouge Americans by making them pay more for essential health products in the middle of a pandemic. Back in April, my colleague, Congressman Ruben Gallego, and I brought to light a price gouging chain taking place in Arizona. The City of Phoenix Fire and Police Departments were being charged nearly 600% more than the usual prices for N95 masks during a pandemic. Such egregious and completely unacceptable behavior requires the Department of Justice to use all of its resources to enforce our laws. What I find so troubling is that while the Department of Justice is spending time on illegitimate investigations, it could be working to fight real injustices in our system. Americans deserve a Department of Justice that serves the people and treats all defendants equally under the law, regardless of who they know or their political affiliations. And above all, they deserve a Department of Justice that follows the law. The testimony today continues to reiterate the urgent need for the Attorney General to appear before this committee. I look forward to having Attorney General Barr here in July because Congress and the American people have serious questions that need immediate answers. I yield back.
The gentleman yields back.
Great senators. Hi, Chuck. He used to love me when I was a Democrat, you know.